The detention center on Kravik Prime wasn't designed for humans. The gravity was 40% heavier than Earth's standard, and the air was thick with sulfuric compounds that burned Sergeant Mara's lungs with every breath. But those discomforts were nothing compared to what the Kravik had planned for her. They brought her to the training arena in chains, quantum-locked restraints that hummed against her wrists. The arena was a circular pit surrounded by tiered seating, and in those seats sat rows of Kravik cubs. Their scaled bodies were small, but their eyes already carried that predatory gleam their species was known for across 17 systems. Mara had been a prisoner for 3 weeks. 3 weeks since her reconnaissance ship had been shot down over Kravik territory. 3 weeks since her crew had been scattered across this hostile world. She'd survived on military training and stubborn human endurance. But now she stood in the center of the arena, and she knew survival might not be an option anymore. The Kravik instructor, a massive creature with crimson scales and powerful forearms, addressed the cubs in their clicking, guttural language. Mara's translator implant caught fragments. Weakness, lesser species, breaking point. She understood enough. They were going to make an example of her. The first strike came from an electrified whip, a weapon that Kravik used for training and punishment. It caught her across the shoulders, and every nerve in her body screamed. Mara bit down hard, tasting blood as her teeth cut into her lip. She would not give them the satisfaction of hearing her scream. The cubs watched with clicking interest, their heads tilting in that distinctly reptilian way. To them, this was education. This was how the Kravik taught their young that the galaxy was full of weak species waiting to be dominated. Another strike, this one across her back. Mara's knees buckled slightly, but she forced herself upright. Her Marine Corps drill instructor's voice echoed in her memory. Pain is just weakness leaving the body. But strength was staying on your feet when everything in you wanted to fall. She stayed on her feet. The instructor circled her, speaking to the cubs about human fragility, about how easily their bones break and how their thin skin tears. Another strike, then another. Mara's vision blurred, red creeping in at the edges, but she kept her eyes open and fixed on a point on the far wall. She focused on breathing, in through her nose, out through her mouth, and on remaining standing. The cubs began to murmur among themselves. This wasn't what they'd been told to expect. Humans were supposed to be weak. Humans were supposed to beg. Mara didn't. After the 10th strike, something changed in the arena. The smallest cub, barely the size of an 8-year-old human child, stood up from its seat. It was different from the others, Mara noticed through her pain-hazed vision. Where the other cubs had mottled green scales, this one's were a pale silver that seemed to shimmer even under the harsh arena lights. Instructor Vorak, the small cub said, its voice high but carrying an unsettling authority. Stop! The instructor paused mid-swing. Turn. This is not what I said. Stop. The small cub descended from the seating with liquid grace. Despite its size, every other cub moved out of its way. You're teaching us wrong. The instructor's scales rippled with color, a sign of confusion or anger. I am teaching you about weakness, young Turn. You're teaching us to underestimate them. Turn interrupted. The small cub walked right up to Mara, standing just beyond the reach of her chains. Those silver scales caught the light, and Mara realized with a start that they weren't just unusual. They marked Turn as royalty. She'd read the briefings. The Kravik royal bloodline always produced one silver-scaled offspring per generation. Turn looked up at Mara with eyes that seemed far too old for such a small creature. 10 strikes with a training whip. A Kravik warrior candidate would have fallen at 5. Our own adults fall at 7. Turn's head tilted. She hasn't made a sound. The arena had gone completely silent. This is the lesson you should be teaching. Turn continued, turning to address the other cubs. This is what makes them dangerous. Not their weapons, not their ships. Turn gestured at Mara. This is human endurance. This is why they've survived extinction events on their own world. This is why they've colonized hostile planets that would kill us in days. They don't break easily. Mara's legs were shaking now, her body reaching its limits, but she forced herself to meet Turn's gaze. She wouldn't look away, wouldn't show weakness. Not now. Turn moved closer, within arm's reach if Mara's chains hadn't prevented movement. When the small cub spoke again, its voice was soft enough that only Mara could hear. "I know what you're thinking, Sergeant," Turn said in perfect, unaccented English. "You're thinking that even if you die here, you've shown them that humans don't break. You've protected your crew's memory. You've done your duty." Mara's breath caught. How did this child know her rank, her name? Turn's next words were delivered with a calm that was far more terrifying than any threat could be. "Count your family, Sergeant. All of them. Every brother, every sister, every parent, every cousin, every human you've ever loved." Those silver scales seemed to darken. "When we're done with you, they'll all go next. The Kravik do not forget insults. And your refusal to break, that's the greatest insult of all." The small cub turned away, heading back to the seating. But before Turn had taken 3 steps, something changed in Mara. The fear that had been absent during her torture, fear for herself, suddenly flooded through her. But it was accompanied by something else. Something that every predator species in the galaxy had learned to recognize in humans, usually too late. Determination. "Turn," Mara said, her voice raw but clear. The small cub stopped. "You should count yours, too." The arena went dead silent again. Even the instructor seemed frozen. Turn turned back slowly. "What?" Mara straightened despite the agony screaming through every muscle. Despite the blood running down her back, despite the impossible gravity weighing her down. She met those ancient eyes in that small face and smiled. A predator's smile, all teeth and no humor. "Count your family," Mara repeated, "because I'm a human marine. I'm a reconnaissance specialist." She took a painful breath. "And before you caught me, I sent everything I learned about your world, your defenses, your royal bloodlines." She looked pointedly at Turn's silver scales. "Back to my command." The color drained from Turn's scales. "You wanted to teach your cubs about humans?" Mara's smile widened. "Here's your lesson. We're not dangerous because we endure pain. We're dangerous because while you were trying to break one of us, 1,000 more were already on their way." She leaned forward as far as her chains allowed. "And humans, we don't make threats, little one. We make promises. My fleet arrives in 72 hours, and they're going to want to know what happened to their sergeant." The silence in the arena stretched for a long moment. Then Turn did something unexpected. The small cub laughed, a clicking, hissing sound that raised the scales on every other cub's back. "Perhaps," Turn said, "we underestimated you in more ways than one." "Perhaps," Mara agreed, still standing, still unbroken. "You did." The Kravik instructor stood frozen, whip in hand, suddenly understanding that this lesson had gone somewhere no one had intended. The smallest cub had just received a threat from a chained prisoner. And somehow, impossibly, it was the prisoner who held the power in this moment. Because that was the thing about humans. They didn't just endure. They survived. They adapted. They came back. And they never forgot.